hopeful that the movement is very interesting right now. That yeah, Vecna might support that the power of that infinity as well as that a similar kind of platform to that that access to that point like a similar kind of form might do one. Vecna might be using but like Vecna's thought might be even more under that like like access to that might be like it is like Vecna might even need a form is or like the name of a person be like not for a person job like the name is like randomly stuff in individual of a target that individual might be like create so much like another person get that individual is like and the love like Vietnam is also have like the power of like carry of that creative or elimination no feel like they want like now maybe using to you can with like using like reference target might be execute so that according to that witness might be that it might be that in the down to state where like maybe we can that it might be only maybe it might be only in the country that but now maybe to that interesting fill that into that question of mind goal that interesting German and gauge access into so this like that like might be in that what will happen and what when that might be so that's about to get that on the middle and another program. So like the main right now for like another multiple lab the vast knowledge and was like to remain wider and they're doing it to like hurry for a place like and even at that point like like the thing of like and then they're also like not having run back towards like steady state like the scenario that I'm at that point I'm pushing for it steady to be or still fall down in that way that's before it had they are like I'm putting that the last project and like through that from like area and like I'm putting that already getting the and basically and later and noticing that through the project at that point that you can be unable to like contain that page and at that point I'm programming like the last project like I don't take out area and at that point I'm looking for two positive yeah I got that at that point being when that one of like the point of the those that already targeted by Vietnam. Then going through that the same situation as that starting to activity at that point and go through like the same situation of that is taking us like for in front of that the password and everyone and it is like functional that is the like one positive that is the other positive that is things for like affected about maybe about to take out predict that. As that thing that we can damage reach from like back showing up like some of the that I'm saying, like automatically like the dynamic style. For the for like say for it to be existing is strong. It's like the dynamic for the so that original so and that thing that thing really that's like from that fantastic that Boston New and it's like it's like that I'm good on like and point. At that point, I'm looking for a maybe unfortunately going to land the grant to identify and create maybe that at that point being when all the current that point of the builder that target by the starting production limited and after the thing after that now only about to make it to with like anything on that is that target when they to do that maybe that but you know like and not yet and also like so at that point by exactly then making it in time exactly at that point that's going up and at that point was like connecting with the like telling area now to like full uh to full target point not get about the uh now and they put them all filling in down like the matching and I think to leave places that the headphones on that and basically at that point that so that the music button is going to happen straight away. And soon as you enter into that the mind world of like recognize that my kind of thing. So we will let you know that to be that the even world opening happening from like the mind world Python from the that's the topic when that into play. Marriage is like escape on working on the mind world that that way that might be say like to that guy akan and that way akan menggunakan video getting from like the boulder it's like dan dia that dia message and dia upload like we like edit and pada cerita tersebut and then that will new to being from against like the language and that like dalam video right although the movement still remains for that the way it's sort of right after like the thing of like natural figure and machine and also which is after like things or with black hope and the that very nice to say black and that can all start with that how together how that knowledge that's still the knowledge and so so that also the guarantee for like from the getting insecure and basically that's pretty trying to that shit and then you can see when machine and all of the out of that career from right now out by most likely that right now since the targeting all of and basically right there they explore it at that point and basically each and every single one of them like the right now is from within like right now if you those issues like share with us outcome like like you're building up that story right now. And yet, like I'm just saying that initially that holding marching back into Lapid phone, you're realizing them like come to such a conclusion that Lapid like probably scared but like them exploring so so that that thing along the lines of like when you're going actually force or so of that is that so there's the information connected to like how they might be able to that stop like schedule at they might have all together as like but they might have given like all together like over the why exactly why and why but we are on the rest of the native sector or somehow like Nancy and seeing about them that finally comes out of the conclusion and that way them once again boldly marching into re-entering back into like regular form into it and that see that thorough exploration while facing that multiple share existence and hallucinations from that then facing that and while continuing on to that exploration. And at that point, I was connecting that real like then okay, it takes but not to like isolation there was how of like so like so like that that these are the like speak of to like say like they and all of them like growing up wearing headphones to so they're exploring like to go to now and to make them because then the during that point like one of the in one of the kids like the track ending up stopping that already at the point maybe something going on with that development of that one of the and basically one of the like new stopping as basically in that the mind was starting to for like one of them and maybe I'm thinking that they may be one of them getting trapped in that personal mind world and basically that and one of them that created my like hype for black person in that mind world job like I can put it or looking for but with the light into the like this tsunami it's like about the current maybe that detail ending up with and anxious like that's point like about the current and maybe that way like he was really hiding and he was doing anything of exploring that's the bad enjoy of like the with that so there's also like family into like into like kind of like that is the role of thing and most crazy right. Yeah, so that they know the also right now maybe for like 90 right now is going like depending on long at that like so and at that point it's like that not getting 15 different ways and that's really like from that point it's like and book like the moment might say I'm looking to be doing that it's a like but it's like that's all like some things which shopping to that get that not getting that way on that was the it's an out that and it's like about to that handle okay, so then the Canadian Senator right now is a mutual like during activities, not only courageous or like a bold person might be like that with the that might be like the claim of permission for like my government to live it up and creating the data for music and that's when like motor go and being totally surprised that it was so easy like change the scenario that I was doing. At that point, from the different that during an extremely care that you just made it people like my government was like or like those like then you reach to like the place around like you're getting so things there that you're inside to this state shouting out to spare in the fact that there's going to be no black corporate that they have and that we can take them to a land corporate and they can hold the same offer that I paid to self and I think it is gets the potential like get them back to the hundred they would get an interest to bring that but that was really the big lyric to that more environment as well as like the secretary or environment point at that point of the like need choice and more environment having that change in the plan to like basically to go to that kind of thing like with scenario to get pay for like scenario that way like and then by the time the flight was making it was like a reject. So this one by then that the situation is that all of them so on the different that then by then that being switching to that case were like the most relevant at that point I'm not different that in that I don't know and by then like also different that they fighting between that of and so converting in that about the kind of like a bond between being formed between something like this now instead of like a bond between being formed between the by one like this now like that them different like only before like taking that some also like a different like and so most likely maybe to make formulating a plan to like how to do the plan so I think that also like the like sampai berperan bagian like bantu like semua like like the plans for that like that then like the most really taking off into like the challenge so like seeing that and like seeing that like the sooner of the like and definitely pop up at that point would be the point of like how like the family world and like the most of like the family world has totally destroyed for like so much like probably don't remember all of that at that point was that choosing and so like the zone that by then like control out but like feeling of like about your friendship by then like just now then so, like at that point I was trying that a lot of them so like I'm feeling like focus so taking in the race when I was when like focus only using all the objects and everything it's not different than that case of the like my first pop up putting it out feel like trying to use that and you know finally just way with that approach with the investment is like the scenario that like focus really that 5 minutes wait to like single handed to taking down like you know like the scenario that is over like at that point I'm doing like the garden feeling shop and left the car seeing and training that so then I was left them straight away walking like the motor skate and like would be about to take out when I'm sort of covering like the motor once again like so that I not put and take a note so like the motor once again taking up and basically like taking out like that after that goes like the like scenario that I'm going to bring and that's the most straight away escape from that the process is to say that you know that is very important. At that point, Silvan is in that all the other jobs that they be being into that situation were like they were struggling to that stop like the stop and get that so that is another that yeah. Also on that point, taking about the advantage of that situation to that escape is like this scenario and that way like by the time that would be on which that part of like getting that and something like of noticing that whole kind of like play that like about the mechanic and that around that okay so like at that point I'm exploring maybe for totally getting that feeling that is like the cognitive of like the cognitive that can be the like theory and like chosen those might be to be like automatically during the at that point that automatically young still need to be able to do it like where like that something will be like again at that point like like so really finding like those that more about and like seeing like the pilot like for the state of that that is just state of and this at that point of so the that contains the face feel like you betrayal and but level for lack of that point that's something ending up taking out the not one of the aspects and both like wait and something else actually taking out the replay but now it's there so at that point totally bring for like Joseph when a smaller moment we have to be stop and it will be rate like over and I'm going to bring that by then like that scenario being able to like terms of like the different monster and that monster might have done that more damage by then and might have destroyed like that machine space to the latex and might have taken off the data structure again. And by then that like the guards might have usually that the guards might have ended up not being able to catch up but like instead like ending up taking out like the monster might have been eventually might have been able to catch up with the and then and after that, like there are would be by then like by the certain sort like sort of like the sort of like you know jump like that way like almost making it to that okay. They are like they are playing with this like you know and I'm sitting on television that like at that point that critical situation now for listening for that that what I'm just pointing out that the bomb just like experience playing flight simulator arcade games like changes and how it by the so like that way I can look spring that they get like somehow like the moment ending up that the so like neuroenvironment, like I'm mentioning that neuroenvironment comes out narrative like get out of themselves out of that Russia and get back to America. Like so that experience of like neuroenvironment is like a positive experiment because of and my picture of the obviously, like the minimum tension right now for black element to actually would have regained back the power like the moment element would be separating it like destroying that the memory mind world of that that element that stuff to like the one of that like scenario that again going with that mind world with experience and total putting ending up being mostly useful for like element of the like of focusing it into the next like I'm considering for like element eventually flexible period targeting element and basically trying to full element into that of mind board. And at that point, I'm going to take that experience of that. The continuous correction against the delivering like level like the point like the like memory mind board. So like that way like that experience for being enough things extremely good for that. Level to like the point like but not mind board and that way the point but now in that point like the scenario parameter of the right. So that usually in my friends of that lab question as well might be even sent up to it as that of that given of that adding and lot all of that right now way back in that 1950 but like with the real instruments might have influenced that Vietnam made out might have made and that Vietnam made a lot more about that might have also made it into that Vietnam made it overused Vietnam's that power and like soft improvement might have been the case Vietnam power that we might have gone into an extreme enormous like kind of state. And this might be the reason for lag Vietnam last that more back all the way back in like 1950 and it's only in that after that Vietnam it might be like language of the case might be that like without that the maintain like main like relevance to greatness which might be in the like it might face so many face number of years exactly like when not from the consideration for like element to be able to like get that relevance like power without having confidence so making that might be that factor to that the investment for that situation might be the case like about to think that I was able to and not today right. Well, that's definitely my friend right now for like city. I thought it's been for 3 days of me get that is there to like to see the inform for like right to be able to like communicate exactly to with like 11 by 11 will be within that material and I can spend that my being able to that fit with fit to within that material towards that 11 by 11 put into within like the mind world of like Nina the like something like 11 they are like usually while something after being like 11 that went to be like in this struggling kind of state the like 11 wanting to like figure out like Nina how to like escape from Nina but like at that point is when I'm looking at that point like the courses that are after like 11 like I'm looking like that's almost making it short like almost making it and starting and so being separated into that the Nevada lab that's still not that is only going to that at that point when I was trying that especially my share points was like I was trying exactly at that point that Mike as well Mike voice as well being able to like to see children have been exactly within like the mind world of like Lena and basically element hearing my voice like this now like so like element that way being able to like speak to like Mike and elements at that point telling Mike how to like what they confused and basically they can't figure out how to get that power get a lens of like 11 sentences telling Mike at that point I'm like Mike give it that absolute motivation and confidence for like element with with some point eventually ending up become turning into that key fact which like might be missing for like 11 which might be allow 11 to like actually like my voice and my word finally allow 11 to find your lax and properly focus and be able to like figure out Nina how to escape from like Nina and at that point I'm looking like that way oh my self ending up figuring out how to like escape from Nina and that was when that as like the course would be making it towards like OS and Panorama looking at like the post would be about to take out Panorama and like that really last second when I was trying like the Nina making it like totally put into the sport to like like taking it out starting to like personal time with the and that's like the open up and at that point like open up then like smiling at like the for the like the scenario set up to the and the oh, so that we much the you might know that like the real world with the train after that the start like towards with the train might have loved spiders and might have had like a hobby of like counting spiders might have been like the train. This might be the reason for what might be but now most likely using that similar powers to like that of like carries to create like false hallucination to set the target like that the target or should fire exactly fire as like maybe that need to be like good fact might be like again like about another one and once again. Yes, so like actually my popular range should have sitting on the for like without the great and those sitting for like things finally into and like with the big home that I'm offering like my thing without the great I was against stars and to the sea delete and some of the like for Nancy C Papa and Robin has like might be having someone in the first still like Robin when Robin might have not in like the maybe like a moment or we might have it for some time last when I don't know about might be like it is like about the and so like Robin has to see from the hallucination of that engager also like about what is that enjoying as well as that in the detail for different types of things up laptop the chart manipulation for the different and so I get from different source to the index the base of like Steve has still of Lucas alone like that they both might not have that kind of like the skill feeling to this any sort of like the thing gets memory to things that might be the case of liver growth. So like under like the way like the system starting from like say like all these things to like really that under the thing that they like a bit like really like then after the book like land things liver and also like then also putting a trade finding itself at like this home. And at that point I'm putting that all of like hallucination like standing before and at that point, I'm probably finally like the hallucination of like the Vietnam of the husband showing up. Instead, it's in front of like all of that hallucination of that. I'll be also to the sort of like the first like change the scenario that I'm the whole thing. And my vegetarian so like at that point, Vietnam showing up my Vietnam maybe telling us that like the fine becomes more like the fine like taking would be along the lines of the Vietnam telling that and Vietnam that way maybe tearing them out of that would be a house right now for recognizing with that camera reflecting the scenario that because the right away. Because one still even have conditions for like the group of 90 and 19 and all of them like to get not sorry that the right answer from back is actually want to answer right now that that's the planes might have made into much yeah maybe like that this is the shape of the women so that the never comes up to being for a moment I don't know and to come up with like a plan to that okay while taking that we don't have to that okay we have to and find how much we have to find that you are knowing exactly for us in my so but we have to find that for mga women from different sort of grade like feeling connecting that was because of that like experience like traits into the quantity laboratory like the exact knowledge of that in like the trade account so differently so we did that like and that for a woman was continuity in that basically with black theoretic we can that totally make it towards like performance like skillful so you say performance make it fat towards like airplane again that name of the moment coming from that the plan to that telling choice to that stay with like the airplane and basically where like the airplane is need for like choice to that get someone to that fix like the airplane by the time like more a moment will be back with black pop so they along the lines of like an extremely on conflict by people that are going to find that more about to make like and so it's like you to define the search agreements that open up that I'm about to like and I'm going to bring that along the way like I just bring that once again that you're trying to like it and at that point I'm going to bring for like for another domain would be the friendly searching for like really all around cleanly all around just like looking at it that episode of it so that from the point of to the end at this point that understand that but by that would have made this like escape on like the potential basically mobile on the frames by the laptop on that like like a skill that the laptop running into during like the scenario to what I was just from that whatever what is not and so like the game is going like pop up definitely not recognizing Yuri and Yuri is not recognizing how it's like this number that ever is quick. So like exactly I'm just trying for like pop up as well as like Yuri like license for setting in like native but deciding to that stick together for like the findings like the scenario that I'm sorry. So like that way as like the brand hero to working together with when I'm trying of like when pop up will be asking that more just like name is like at that point that Yuri telling him that Yuri. So like at that point, I'm just like for some shop India realized that you with like I said, so just on the trying that and more about my totally sorting out of and you together like this now that I'm visible with. And that point I'm just trying about that. So the one then before at that point I thought like taking out the pillars of base and at that point of ending up actually taking out you with like this now. So like at that point that the police 30% will see in the page that open up that I'm visible with. So like about when I'm going to for like of as well as like or about like I think they were to like where like join and like the make the person go out right and like things like the airplane would be like looking out in that area. So like at that point like and so my government got made in care and at that point some people bring like the not don't think so we not knowing like what to do at that point to like escape from that point. So like at that point I'm going to think the benefits of so like at that point I'm not going to so at that point, I'm totally fine for laptop or something like that. I can say without it's the play that is the Filipino how to apply that thing. So that at that point, I'm totally fine. Like you might actually know. So that's definitely that point that pop up managing to that get to that thriving to that take them back to that. So it's like maybe like take up the scenario that I'm looking at the program and that way like hey guys, I know about that. Taking it back from the kid and it like there is a scenario that I'm looking at the program. It is like the still remember like it might be that probably that but now that collective hallucination creating or that might have because of that can be and feel all of the like being lies in that language is also others of our settling of parents. So like we have putting that and also might have really might be not aware of that situation might be like that of that is with them or already being under ending up like the platform Vietnam's hallucination might be the case, but never brain, which is so black. About this black switch of the case, maybe might be that like Napians are also working around so like I'm bring that can so take without much really like all of them together black seeing but now so in front of it. It's like the unlikely the case look like it's not that sort of name. Only at that point I'm just putting that maybe when you realize that like or like come down to the conclusion that basically the lights were actually but now that is a that is a scenario that is pretty much on it. It is still like not leaving friends when right now, especially for the actual and like from the model with that running right now it's like the scenario that I'm so leading to like not not listening to not staying away from that and then like I'm with it right now from like with that side event like taking out run out like the scenario that I'm not ready to and then also I think for that like share for instance and all that and different that and then taking off one up it's like the thing that way in which that like not fetch out which that's happening moving with like like taking about like the scenario that are about the way